by Commissioner Mozark, supported by Commissioner Urban. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. For our opening ceremony this evening, we will have an invocation by Pastor David Nichols of First Baptist Church of Kalamazoo. I ask that you stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, Pastor.
Shall we pray? God, grace and truth, as we gather tonight in your presence, we do ask that you would help us to be quick to listen and slow to judge, that we might seek indeed truth, and that we might act with grace, that we might find that which is best for the community and for all. Bless us now as we move forward. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. We are glad to have you all here. We are now on item C, the formal agenda adoption. Are there any changes to the agenda, Commissioners? Hearing none, anyone in the audience wanting to speak on items under the consent agenda, that's items under F, that item will need to be moved to the regular agenda. If you have such an item, please indicate at this time. And forgive me, I've got a cold, so this is going to continue to be fun. Mr. Manager, the consent agenda, please. Or communications, excuse me.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Consent agenda, please. How did I do that? I'm sorry. This is my favorite thing to get to hear at the end of the year. I'm trying to fly by it. We have a report on the Summer Youth Employment Program, and I think we have a few youth in the audience, so that's pretty exciting. So I believe we have Karen, I'm going to say it wrong, Carlisle from KRESA is going to present that. Good evening.
The top page that you have is a quick little snapshot of some of the information from the program, and then connected to that is a longer narrative that gives more specific details. So I'm going to be starting with the dashboard this evening that gives some of the basic details of the program. So this year we had 527 youth apply for the program, 128 youth that were able to work throughout the summer, and you can see the youth earned wages of just a little over $80,000. We have the age distribution listed next. That is pretty common with how it has been for at least the last few years. So the majority of youth that are participating in the program are 14 or 15 years of age, and then age 16 and 17, as you can see, it starts to decrease a little bit as the age advances. The race and what should say ethnicity of participants next. So those were the individuals, the 128 individuals that participated in the program. That is the demographics of that. That has stayed pretty common throughout the last couple of years. We did show an increase in individuals that selected multiple races. So each individual race, you do see that there's a little bit of a change, but there was quite an uptick in individuals that had multiple races selected. And then our male-female distribution stays pretty close to that 50-50. I think the females was a little less last year, so a few more females, it sounds like, made it to us this year. At the bottom of that page is a distribution by the neighborhoods. This is something when we met with the neighborhood associations that they had asked us about, and we told them that we would track that information this year. So we had the highest amount of participants and applicants come from the north side neighborhood, and then east side, Edison, and west side, as you can see, are pretty close distribution, and then the numbers lower for Oakwood and Vine neighborhoods. On the right side of that, I wanted to point out we have some of our community partners listed, our job sites that participated. So these are the individual sites that hosted youth over the summer and provided, for most of them, the supervision for the summer, helping them to learn those workplace skills that are so important. And then we have listed the crews. So we had our 4 neighborhood associations participate and we had, and some of them multiple crews in different neighborhoods. And then our special project supporters at the bottom, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail on that with our thank you for our talent tours in a few minutes. So on our narrative report, just a few things that I wanted to go over on that. So we did have a significant change in our program this year to our application process. So in years past, students would need to come down and wait in line on typically a Saturday morning at YOU, and it was kind of on a first-come, first-served basis to get into the program. So this year we went to an online application system. So what we wanted to do was to be able to give a better opportunity for individuals. A lot of times we'd find individuals had something going on just that specific day and was not able to make it down. So we actually had a 2-week application period where it was open and individuals could go online and apply. They could do that from any place that had internet access, including we had multiple times in locations at our South Street location here in Kalamazoo for youth to be able to come down and do that. So we did have a little bit larger number of individuals that applied for the program. Like I said, just over 500, and I think a lot of that was due to the application process. And then from there, it just went to a random sort of the numbers, and that's the order that we went in and contacted the youth to have them come in to see about participation in the program. So we're very excited for that change, and very thankful to our KRESA Technology Department that helped us to put that online process together. So we had, again, most of the younger youth, 14 and 15-year-olds, working in the neighborhood crews, the older youth, typically 16 to 17, that go to a variety of job sites throughout the Kalamazoo area. And they do everything ranging from, child care, customer service, landscape. They did different AIDS program aids, working with children, so a pretty good variety there. We have, of course, in addition to the employment aspect of the program, so of course we know most of the youth want to work, want to earn that paycheck and earn that money, but we put many things into the program beyond just that. So they're learning those very basic work skills that we know are so important and very valuable. They're also learning things like teamwork, leadership, work ethic, time management, budgeting, finances. We do as much as we can. So the education piece is just as important to us as the employment piece of our program, which we're very excited about. The youth get to participate in an extensive employability skills curriculum. They all walk away having a resume at the end of the summer, and they get to learn how to build that and how it's important to keep that updated throughout your years of employment. And we have a career exploration piece for the program as well. So our goal is to expose them to as many different career fields as possible as they're in these very young ages and trying to decide maybe what they would like to pursue in the future. And so we've done that in different ways. This year we did it through a combination of talent tours and career days. So on our talent tours, we always have them do like a survey at the beginning of the summer and try to figure out what careers they have an interest in, and we try to focus on some of those that had the very high focus and match them to who we're having participate and give them information in the summer. And healthcare was a very large one. So for our talent tours this year, we focused and we went to Bronson, and we also was with WMU School of Medicine, and that was a brand new one for us this year. Both of them were fantastic tours, learning about the healthcare career field. They got to speak to different individuals and different specialties. At Bronson Health, they got to learn about the history of Bronson Health, some of the history of the specific departments, and take a tour. Very exciting for them. It just happened to be as they were leaving, a helicopter was coming in and landing, so they also got to see that experience while they were standing out there. And then also WMU School of Medicine. It was so exciting to add them this year. So they got to, again, hear from experts in the field, but then they also got to go visit the area where it's set up like a hospital. And there's mock hospital rooms. They have dummy patients, and so these dummy patients, they can communicate, and they cannot see the people communicating with them. And so they have people that's acting in like through the dummy, giving out symptoms that they may be having, things that they're experiencing, yelling out in pain. And then they have a group of individuals and they show how they're teaching and training of how to handle that situation, from everything from the medical situation also to the communication with the patient. And there was a group of individuals from the medicine school that put a skit on for the students, and so they got to see if they had a patient that was coming in that was as if they were having a stroke, and they got to see everything that they would do. So it was kind of a faster version, but everything that they would do and what they would try to do to assess that patient. So a very eye-opening experience for the youth. So our career day, we had 3 different entities participating in our career day. So 2 from our KRESA departments. We had our MyTech department, so they got to learn about technology in the field of technology. So very interesting for the youth. They got to hear about coding, video game design, use of drones. So you can imagine how that kept their attention. And then also, our technology department reported back to us that even after the career day, they had many youth that followed up with them to ask more questions. So they handed out their contact information to all the youth, and they had youth that was following up and asking more questions and saying that they may have an interest in pursuing technology field. We also had our Kalamazoo RESA Education for Employment. So our goal with that, because they cover so many different programs in education for employment, so they were able to learn about a variety of things from fine arts, architect, engineering, education, management, and technology. And all of those are based through the Michigan Merit Curriculum, so they can earn credits and participate in those courses as well. And then our Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety also participated in our career day. So we had officers that was at our office, and they were talking about what it's like, a day in the life as a public safety officer. They brought a fire truck and a police cruiser, and the individuals were also able to go out and learn about the vehicles and sit in them and learn about some of the different instruments. We also are always looking for ways to enhance our program or add something new to our program. And so this year we wanted a project that was going to teach valuable workplace skills, but also have a community impact. And we decided to do some landscaping projects in the neighborhoods. And we had, through generous donations, and we're going to be recognizing all of our businesses in just a minute, but through some generous donations of not only materials, but of time and expertise in the field of landscaping, we were able to go out. We did one project in the North Side neighborhood, right by the senior housing at the corner there. We were able to do one at the North Side, at the East Side Association, right there at the Neighborhood Association out in front by the sign and up next to the building. And we did two projects in the Edison neighborhood. So one in the Storybook Garden and one right at the end of, in the downtown strip on Portage Road where they have all the businesses. There was a large area there and they had some flower pots. And so we were able to do both of those and do landscape projects. And so we're very thankful to everybody who assisted in donating so generously to be able to expand to do that for the program. It was so beneficial for the youth to work alongside the professionals and learn kind of some of the tricks of the trades and what goes into designing a landscape project, what you have to think about ahead of time, and while you're planning, how you take care of it afterwards, showing them some of those basic things like pruning and what's important and what you need to look for. And so it was valuable lessons in the art of landscaping, but more importantly, or just as importantly, it was also them giving back to their community. So we took pictures of the before, and then we would wait until afterwards, and we'd take pictures of the after, and we really spent time talking with the youth and helping them to understand that each of us can do a little part in what a huge difference that we can make within our communities. On the last page here, on the right-hand side, is the budget. So I just give a budget snapshot. So as you can see, we had 52% of the total funds that went directly to the youth in wages of the money that they were able to earn, and about 58% in total that it cost for the participant expenses, including the fringe benefits and then the talent tours. We stayed right at the same level. We had 33.4% staffing costs last year. We had 33 this year. And overall at the bottom, you see the total amount minus maybe a couple of little final invoices, but very close to what the final amount of the program expenditures would be. Overall, we came in a little bit less than what the total program, what we had allocated for the program. As you all know, we had an extremely warm summer, and so we had a couple days due to the extreme heat that students were released early, so they were not out working in those extreme temperatures. And then I think we had a couple of rain days as well, and so that always has a little bit of an impact. Are there any questions on this report?
Commissioner Anders?
First of all, I just want to say thank you for the work. It's extremely important. I really appreciate that. And thank you for the report even more. I think that really, really helps to be able to see this. It's nicely done. I like the narrative, I like the pictures, and I really do like the dashboard.
Okay.
I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Good thinking on that. I do have a couple comments. One is, I did think it's positive that about 60% of the expense really is wages and fringe that goes through to pay young people that are involved. I think that's great. On the question side, about a quarter of the young people who applied were able to participate. Can you talk a little bit about how that selection is made, and is it likely that many of the 527 youth that applied could have participated? Were there room in the program? Were there capacity?
We definitely have capacity. So of course, it comes down to how many individuals we can support based on the prediction of how much individuals could earn in wages over the summertime for the amount of funding allocation that we have. So we definitely have room that we could expand. Last year, we had 150 youth that worked. If you guys remember back to some of the American Recovery funding in 2009, we placed 1,000 kids between here and St. Joseph County. Now that was countywide, not just citywide, but close to 800 of those was in the county of Kalamazoo. So if you just kind of take that as a snapshot, there's definitely more opportunity. We've always had many businesses that are willing to work with us to house youth for the summertime. So as far as, the eligibility guidelines for the program is they have to live within the city of Kalamazoo, so city residents, or attend a Kalamazoo public school. So what I can say is out of the 527, just from the information they provided on the online application, that looked like they qualified, the way they answered the questions. Now, of course, when we bring them in to talk to them, we verify that information, but from the past programs that we had, my suspicion would be the large majority probably would qualify for the program. So we do always have room to expand if we have opportunity.
Thank you. Just one other question, just follow up. So I know we see the expense side of things, but what's the revenue? How's the program funded? I guess is my question.
This year, we were right at about, I didn't bring the exact, but it was right about 165,000.
Which came from the city of Kalamazoo.
Yes.
And where did that come from at the city?
So we had a gift from William Johnston, that was stupid. And he's been a supporter of our youth program for many, many years. And then it also came through our budgeting process. So we've had two sources of support for this program for years. And you're right, and was it 2009, 2010?
2009.
We had a lot of money from the federal government, and I missed out those days where we could have 400 kids in our community
Yes.
having opportunities for employment. That's the way it should be in the summertime, so.
Thank you.
Other, Vice Mayor?
Well, I think Commissioner Harrison covered almost all of it, but Karen, you just do keep doing better every year. No kidding. It's just great that you have the career exploration, the service to the community, all those different things. The way I look at it, it costs about $1,200 for each young person that was in there. That's a best $1,200 that could be spent for a summer.
Thank you.
The vast majority of the funds went in salaries to those young people who wouldn't have got it anymore. And, we don't have hardly any money in our budget that we can put into this, as I recall. It's mostly donations. But there's still 400 kids that applied that couldn't get into that. And I'm sure there would be more that would apply, because we know that summer that we had that money. So I just think it's a message to the state and the city and the federal government, not the city government, but people in the city, that we got kids that want to really do some good things during the summer, and we ought to make that possible. So I think you're doing a wonderful job, and I thank you for what you're doing, and I know you made a real difference in those kids' lives, so thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. I would like to spend a few minutes recognizing the businesses and agencies that assisted. Like I said, it's their generous donations and support of the program. It would not be possible for us to do all of this without them, and we're so appreciative. And if I could ask Mayor Hopewell to come down and join us, we have something that we'd like to present to him. We have, I know some that can make it, some that could not, but I still would like to recognize all of them and read the names off of those that participated. So starting with the career days and the talent tours, Bronson Health. I would like to give a special thank you to Leah Warwick, Ashley Cutshaw, Jane Harrelson, and Sam Westra. I do not believe they were able to make it this evening, but we thank them for our talent tour. The Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety, Lieutenant Rafael Diaz. Not sure he was able to make it this evening. The chief's here. Well, yes, I'm glad to see that, because I wanted to give a special thanks and a special recognition to Chief Hadley and the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety for their long-standing commitment to the program. So they have supported us for, all the years that I can remember, going back that I've been participating in the summer program. So they have come to us before. Thank you, Chief. Yes.
Sorry, also Nick Anderson as well, that I think assisted him that day, so they're here as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me get this one. I'd love to get a picture. But so they've been, like I say, a long-standing partner with us. So they've come, they've talked to the youth. What I really commend them for is every summer I get to hear feedback from my staff that as they're working in the neighborhoods, that different public safety officers will stop by and start talking to the youth and start talking about the projects and thanking them for the work that they're doing and really encouraging to them. And so that to me speaks volumes. That's not something we've asked them to do. That is something that they're naturally doing on their own. So we thank you for always being a partner and being willing to be there for the youth and helping them. Thank you very much. Our Kalamazoo RESA departments could not be here this evening, so Jason Luke from Education for Employment and Brian Schubach from our MyTech Technology Services Department were both of the individuals that volunteered their time, so thanks to them. And then we also had the Western Michigan University School of Medicine, and I believe Dr. Cheryl Dixon is here this evening. I also would like to read off Dr. Diane Pierce, Dawn DeLuca, Tracy Mersfelder, Megan Roxbury, Ann Lepper, Carolyn Swanson, and Constance Warline for also assisting. They pulled quite a big team together for us and spent quite a few hours in the day. And so it was a real commitment. So we thank you so much. Thank you. It was wonderful. Now for the landscaping projects. We had reached out to some businesses to ask if they would donate to us. Unable to be here this evening is Stacy Hanley from Briar Patch, so they donated flowers to us. Hopefully here this evening, Hanley's Tree Service. David Hanley. So Hanley's Tree Service, I'm going to say, went above and beyond in so many ways because we had asked them for donations that were going to donate mulch to our projects. And as you can imagine, trying to schedule these in the different neighborhoods can be challenging, but they delivered multiple times, not just one time. So anytime we call them and say, hey, we need some mulch, they just say, where would you like it? We'll go dump it for you. So we greatly appreciate that. And I also need to give a special thank you to David's wife, because I found out today's her birthday. And so she was so generous to come to this meeting with her husband in support. So happy birthday to you. So thank you very much. I so appreciate it. Also, Winky Greenhouses, and here to you this evening is Lisa Winky Ambrosio. And Winky was extremely generous to us in donations. So we literally stopped by their garden center and they said, anything you see in the parking lot you can have. And so we were able to just pick out numerous flowers that we were able to plant in all the different neighborhoods. So thank you, it was a very generous donation. Appreciate it so much. And then last, but certainly not least, our Western Michigan University Landscape Services Department. And so here this evening I know is the supervisor, Daryl Jenkins. So I'd like to have Daryl come up. He also has, I believe, some of his staff with him, and I'm going to read them all off. Sue Brand, Jessica Christie, Logan Churchill, I think one of their student workers, Ellen Eberstein, Todd Eberstein, Tammy Keel, Tracy King, Sharon Mullins, and Kelly Randall. And then also a special thank you to their Director of Landscape Services, Mark Freever. So when I called them, it was kind of late in the year when we had this great idea. And as you can imagine, spring and summer is a little bit of a busy time for anybody in landscape services. So we really put out a plea, said, could you help us? We had this idea. So the supervisor, Mr. Jenkins, was very generous. He went around to us to all the neighborhoods ahead of time, talked to the neighborhood association individuals, find out what kind of projects they'd like, really did all of the thought process behind what would be the best kind of flowers for the, whether they're getting sun, not getting sun, shade, rain, all of that kind of stuff. Then went with us to Winky Greenhouses to help us to pick out what would be the best match, and then brought their team on multiple times to the different neighborhoods and actually worked hands-on with the students with the project. So generous donation, like I say, especially considering the time of year. And the other thing I wanted to point out for the Landscape Services Department of what I noticed, because I was able to go to 3 of the 4 projects and get to kind of see it all come together. And it was so much beyond just helping the students to understand about the plant that they had or how deep you should put it in the roots and all of those, which is great, but it was really getting to know the students. So what I was hearing all over conversations about, hi, how are you? What school do you go to? What do you have interest in? What do you hope to pursue someday? So it was really making that personal connection with our youth. So it was just so outstanding. We thank all of them and thank them for that generous support to us. Again, I thank everyone for this evening. Thank you, Mayor Hopewell. Good night.
One of the best parts of the job. And it's what's so really, what's so important, I think that's what Ms. Carlisle was trying to address by these awards, that this is a community partnership, you know, from individuals that provide funds to the city stepping forward to employers and businesses and other community agencies. This is a full-fledged, all-out community effort, and I think we have a lot to be proud of in this program. I agree with the good doctor, Vice Mayor, that we need to get all 400 of those young people that didn't make it an opportunity as well, but we'll keep working on that. So thank you for all your work, appreciate it. Yeah. Mr. Manager, the consent agenda, please.
We have 7 items on the consent agenda this evening. First is the approval of the purchase of 2 all-purpose rear dump stainless steel bodies with hoist and scrapers from Arista Truck Systems for a total cost of $128,936. Next is the approval of the purchase of 2 non-heated dump bodies with scraper, wing blades, and spreaders from Schultz Equipment in the amount of $153,190. Next is the approval of an additional month-to-month contract extension with Republic Services for curbside recycling from October 2016 through March 2017 in the amount of $460,827.37, and a change order for the current extension in the amount of $150,410.41 to cover services through September 2016. Next is the adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance of hospital revenue refunding bonds on behalf of Bronson Healthcare Group Incorporated and its subsidiaries for an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $135 million. Next is the adoption of a resolution authorizing city staff to continue applying for and receiving the necessary permits to perform work with Michigan Department of Transportation right-of-ways. Next is the acceptance of a 2016 Justice Assistant Grant Award in the amount of $78,332 from the U.S. Justice Department. And then finally, the approval of a recommendation to the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners that Jerome Kiscorny be reappointed as the city's representative on the Kalamazoo County Land Bank Authority Board.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Commissioners' requested action is a motion to adopt the consent agenda and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Cooney,
Second.
supported by Commissioner Urban. Clerk Borland, please call the roll.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Milzarek.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried. Mr. Manager, you have a report this evening?
Yes, I'd just like to provide an update on where things stand with the Memorandum of Understanding. We are making progress on that, and I do anticipate it being ready for later this month. The October 17th meeting may be quite a tough deadline to meet, given the thought of providing the MOU in advance of that meeting, but certainly be open to other ideas for how to bring this forward.
Well, we have a special meeting on the 24th. We could dedicate that special meeting to the MOU. Is that reasonable? I think we just have that item, and we'll make sure that it gives PMN time to set up and get ready for that. Probably staff can have time to figure out all the web streaming stuff that we always seem to work with, Facebook Live, and then for me, having it out significantly ahead of time so people can have it and chew on it and see it and all that stuff would be my thinking. But we didn't set what our work session was going to be for this month yet. Maybe that's an idea. About that.
Well, I think I support the idea of having that be our principal agenda item. I want to just say, I want to just reaffirm for everybody in the audience and those listening that that's a public meeting. That work session is a public meeting. And if we can, if you were planning to present the MOU to us at a city commission meeting, a regular business meeting, and it's not ready by that preceding Monday, would it be possible to get a version of that to be online so that everybody can see it at the same time we do? That'll make sure that we get maximum benefit from the discussion we have in the work session.
Sure.
Okay, I'm seeing at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since I can't hear a thing, but, great. All right, you have other items on your report, Mr. Manager?
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Clerk, you have a report this evening?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Attorney, you have a report this evening?
Just briefly, and I want to aim this mainly at people who are in the audience, both in the chambers and who may be listening at home. Since the last regular meeting of this body, the state of Michigan approved and the governor signed into legislation several bills dealing with medical marijuana. And as a result, there have been calls to my office as to what's the city going to do? And at this point, we're not going to do anything for a variety of reasons. First off, the bills are rather lengthy. I mean, the one in particular runs over 60 pages long, so it's going to take a little bit of study. Secondly, I'm in conversation with other municipal attorneys, and already there's some questions as to, did the legislature forget that what they said here, they didn't say over here? And so there may actually be some curative or legislation that'll have to be addressed by the legislature, because there seems to be at least some spots in it. Next is, the bills don't take effect until 90 days after the governor signs them. The governor signed them on, I think, the 22nd, and so that takes you into just before Christmas when the bills become effective. So they aren't law for another probably 80 days. Then, under the law, in order to operate a medical marijuana facility, and there are 5 types, and I'll go into that in just a second, that license has to be issued by the state licensing board that's created in this legislation. And the the licensing board won't even hear applications for 360 days after the effective date. So you're looking until December of 2017 before the board will take its first applications. And then the board has to meet and then approve every application for the various types of facilities. Now, there are several facilities, as I've indicated. There are provisioning centers, which you might call dispensaries. There are growers, processors, secure transporters, and safety compliance facilities. And each of those are a different kind of facility, regulated separately under the law. And in order to operate any of them in any community, first, any community can opt out. Any community is not required to have any of these facilities within their borders. And that'll be a decision for this body, the City Commission, to make in terms of what, if any, kind of facilities are going to be permitted, and if so, where are they going to be located. Then the individual who wants to operate, assuming, for instance, the City Commission says, yes, we'll permit some dispensaries or provisioning centers, an applicant has to get that approval at the local level and then have to demonstrate that approval at the state before they get their state license. So merely getting something approved at the local level doesn't permit you to operate until you get that state license, which is a 1-year license, but it is renewable. And the city can collect, I think it's up to $5,000 in processing costs if we permit local operations, local facilities. So I will be working with the Department of Public Safety, Planning and Community Development, probably the city's clerk's office, and working through this legislation and bringing something back to this commission so that whatever is decided would be decided in advance of December of next year. but it's not something that's going to be done overnight. And no, we're not taking any applications. If people want to get first in line, we're not going to be doing anything until we have a system and process, and hopefully municipalities will be getting some guidance from the state between now and hopefully next summer. But so that's kind of a general outline where we stand, and hopefully by educating the public, the clerk's office and my office will receive fewer and fewer calls as to, how can I get a provisioning center license from the city? It's not going to happen anytime soon because of the nature of the legislation. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Commissioner Anderson?
I just had a couple questions just for my own clarity on this. So you said one of the categories is a grower's category, is that correct?
That's correct.
But aren't there already folks who are growing under the current law in their residence? So what is this newly requires some license of something that's already occurring? I don't really understand that portion of it.
Well, I haven't got into it in that deeply yet, but if you are a caregiver, you may grow plants for the patients that you serve, and you can serve up to 5 people in addition to yourself. So, and you're permitted 12 plants per patient. So if you are a caregiver and you are yourself a patient, you can grow up to 72 plants. But again, I think they're thinking about, what is, the idea here is, under the current law, it's not a very commercially viable model if you can only sell, if you will, to 5 people. And you only can have at any one time 12 plants and a certain limited amount of usable marijuana per patient, and they have to be separately categorized and locked. So the current model, while I suppose legally you can do it, it isn't very good. It is not a very good business model. You won't make money at it. I think what the intent here is by the legislature is to look at this type of process more like, and it's not completely parallel and identical, but more like the control of alcoholic beverages, where you've got suppliers, you've got distributors and the like. And so I think this is an opportunity for people who can have maybe more commercial grow operations and then can make that available to caregivers and patients. So again, as I said, this is an attempt to provide something and create if you will, fill a hole that currently exists in the current Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. I don't know that the legislature got it completely right. I don't think it's a neat mesh, and so there may be, like I said, some curative legislation to make that a little more seamless, but that may also come in the way of administrative rules that this licensing board is going to be permitted to issue between, again, now and a little more than a year from now.
Just a follow-up question. Then how does this particular state change affect our local, wasn't that driven by ordinance or driven by referendum allowing up to 3 dispensaries? What's the interaction between?
That's a good question. It seems to me that the argument could be made that our electors of the city of Kalamazoo have said there's got to be at least 3 dispensaries in the city. And the problem, of course, is that charter amendment was rather specific as to what you had to do in order to get one of the, I think it's called, I don't remember what it's called. They don't use the term provisioning center. They don't use the term dispensary either. I forget what it's called, but at 3. And the requirements for that, how well do they track with what the state law says? So that's some of the things that we're going to have to look at in terms of what the charter says versus what the state statute says. Is there room for instance, is some of the local stuff blunted by what the state requires, or are there some of the local things that the state doesn't address, so it is permissive? Then the other question becomes, from a zoning and planning perspective, where should these type of operations be located in terms of what zones would be appropriate for them to operate? And of course, that's just not only provisioning centers. It would also, in terms of, if you're going to permit processors, if you're going to permit, I think, safety compliant facilities like testing labs and that kind of thing.
So stay tuned, is what he's saying. Any other questions? Thank you. We are now at citizens' comments. Any citizen wanting to comment on anything this evening, step to the podium. You'll have 4 minutes. Give us your name and whether you live within the city. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, I'm Frank Warren, I live in Terrace. I let you know that I found out, I've got this little girl's name now, I told you about 2 weeks ago, we donated money to our honor flight, and I'm going to keep her name, her name is Elizabeth, or Isabel, and she's 8 years old. I talked to her parents called me on the phone, I finally got through to parents from the honor flight, and the parents called me and I told them what we were up to, and they said, hey, you go for it. So I have been in contact with the state Legion commander for the state of Michigan. I've been in contact with him as of yesterday. He called me on the phone and said they're interested in doing something for this young girl. And also, I am planning on having a jacket made up like the one I got on with the honor flight on it, so she'll have a jacket. I've got a red vest I think is going to go to her when I see her, but we're trying to get the hold of the school too, to get the school involved in some special program for the girl, because instead of getting $1,350, I understand it went up to $1,550 because they sold lemonade at the Air Zoo the night the veterans came back in from Washington, D.C., and I'm very proud of this girl. In fact, I even got the 48 on a national level. They're going to get involved in it because they want to make a certificate out from Indianapolis to give to this girl. So I'm 100% for this little girl getting all this stuff, because you know, a 8-year-old girl can do what she did, her and her parents. They really need to be recognized for what they did. Her name is Isabel Grimes, if you want to write her name down. And she's such a super little girl. What I've seen, heard, and talked to her dad. Her dad is partially blind. He goes to Western, I heard. We had a talk on the phone a couple of times. He said, you know, I'm glad I know what you're doing. I said, it's just something I want to do for a young girl. Show her the appreciation of an 82-year-old man who was a veteran too of the Korean War. And he's trying to say, hey, thank you for looking after us veterans at your age. Because how many children at 8 years old would think of a veteran? Maybe 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 10, I don't know. But I'm just saying that it's just a super thing to know that a young girl can think of our veterans. In fact, I understand her grandfather was from World War II. And I think that's where it's all boiled out from. This girl's been educated, like my granddaughter's been educated to veterans, and also my great-granddaughter also now has been in the same way. We're educating her with our veterans and what our veterans have done for them. In fact, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to give little flags out to the kids in the school. This is my next project, and I am really interested in what I'm doing. And in fact, I got everybody on my side right now. I say, go for it, and I'm really working on this thing hard. And I'm hoping I'm going to have it done by, I'm thinking I'm going to try to do it Veterans Day at the schoolhouse, maybe in the afternoon. I'm trying to hold it off until then, till I get everything all together and we can do it. And I got to make sure I get all these big shots that I want here involved. And I think maybe I'm going to get one of you guys involved too, to go and say thank you to this young girl. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, please. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Jevin Weinberg, 5817 Cheshire Street. I'm not sure who the audience member, Mr. Robinson, was referring to about the medical marijuana stuff, but I'm guessing I had something to do with it. But House Bill 4209, 4210, 4287, they are very good bills for medical marijuana patients. They're good bills if the leadership in the communities and the municipalities that are going to pass ordinances to govern that industry decide to pass ordinances to govern that industry rather than leave their patients hanging out to dry. I'm not sure. Pop quiz for you guys. Can anybody name any social worker that works at the Kalamazoo or the West Michigan Cancer Center? There's 3 of them. Megan, Lauren, and Susan. And you know what the #1 complaint they get all day long by the people that are the sickest in our community? Why can't I get medical marijuana when I know that's what helps me with nausea, with appetite loss? That's the sickest in your community, asking your social workers where to get medicine. And you know what answers they give them? Check Google. Drive to Lansing. Is that the best we can do for the patients of this community? Thousands of them? I don't think it is. And excuses are long past. The governor signed the laws. The laws allow communities to pass ordinances to license these businesses. And there are very extensive background checks that are allowed for in these laws, which you don't get with most businesses. You will be able to decide who has these licenses and who doesn't, who is worthy of them and who isn't, and where they're to be located at. But anything is better than what we have now. We have nothing now. We have the corner, and nothing against the Edison neighborhood. I went to Edison Elementary School and grew up over there. The corner of Lake Street and Mills is the quickest way to get marijuana in Kalamazoo city limits. What are we doing? What are we doing to the cancer patients, of which I am one and have been one, at the West Michigan Cancer Center? I mean, if you want to kick the can down the road and say, let's wait till the ink is dry on the law, we don't know what the state board might do, blah, blah, blah. The state is going to rubber stamp the communities that license those businesses. The state, barring some weird unforeseen circumstance, the state is not going to reject an application that a community, especially like Kalamazoo, that is going to do their due diligence over these applications, sends to the state level. But we can do something. And within those ordinances, there's going to need to be language for delivery services. There's going to need to be language for drive-through windows. There's going to need to be obviously language for commercial grows. You got plenty of empty warehouses downtown that could use some upgrades. Those can be very lucrative commercial grows for somebody that has the money to invest in it and will invest in it, provided the zoning is there. Let's talk to the social workers at the cancer center. See what they tell you. They talk to the sickest people in our community every day. You know, they see the tears in their eyes from the patients that can't get medical marijuana when they know, or they have to risk something, some safety to go to an unsafe place to get it. You know, those are the people on the ground grinding through the day with the laws and the framework that they are given by their elected leaders. And the people have spoken about medical marijuana many times over and over. How many decriminalization ordinances have to be passed? How many votes have to be done? How many petition drives have to be attempted, you know, before the elected leaders will make decisions that allow for this industry to exist? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Ani Bonjour, Monica Nadeshinakas, Lansing and Donjaba, Kalamazoo, Yindan, Nongom, Anishinaabe, Meanwhile, Ojibwe, Indaw. Hi, my name is Monica Padula. I'm a 2008 and 2010 graduate from Western Michigan University, and I am here to speak about the fountain that we have downtown. I grew up in Lansing and Holt. That's where I was brought up and where I was born. And I'm very, very proud of East Lansing, excuse me, for passing the Indigenous Peoples Day observance that they are doing instead of Columbus Day. That makes me very, very proud to come from a hometown that has finally acknowledged that. I'd like to ask Kalamazoo to follow suit. Kalamazoo, from what I have seen so far, strives to be a progressive city, strives to be a progressive community that seeks to eliminate things that prevent diversity. But one giant ink blot, excuse me for the extra sounds, one giant ink blot on Kalamazoo's record is that fountain, the Fountain of the Pioneers. To be completely direct with you, it's pretty shameful. The description that is used to talk about the artist or the sculpture's views of Native people is really incredulous, and it definitely is not anti-racist. So I want to let you know that as you may already be aware of, the Indian Removal Act happened here in this area, right in our town. And a large group of the Potawatomi were escorted forcibly outside of town, and they were asked to leave. And in that stead, in the 40s, this fountain was erected. Now, I consider myself to be an educated person. I'm also an Anishinaabe woman. I'm a Native and Indigenous woman. But that's a giant slap in the face. It's an act of colonialism and supremacy, and it doesn't belong in this city. where we are attempting to be progressive, where we have a Native American student organization with very low numbers. We're not paying attention to our Native population, and we're not honoring them. We have diverse Native people in this area. I'm Saginaw Band. The Potawatomi that are in the area are in different areas around Kalamazoo, not necessarily in Kalamazoo, but you have lots of different Native and Indigenous people that live in Kalamazoo, that drive past that fountain, and that feel disgraced and demeaned by it. To me, like I said, it's a slap in the face. It says that the professionalism that I lend to Kalamazoo doesn't matter, and I would like to have it removed. For my last few seconds, I would like to kind of read some of the things you can find online in regards to the fountain. Apparently, Ian Ellie wrote this statement. I want to see suggested the progression of the growth of Kalamazoo, the efforts of the pioneers, the romantic sadness of the vanquished Indians, the onward strides of the industrial accomplishments, the prolific richness of the country they were blessed with, the tower symbolizing the pioneers' advance and the Indians' stalwart and fateful resistance. Mr. Jameson, in a letter to the Kalamazoo Gazette in 2005, encouraged the city to keep the sculpture. He says Kalamazoo is fortunate indeed to have a major public monument by a giant in American art, that it also remains one of the most genuine interpretations of his feelings, is a testament to the power of abstraction in modern sculpture. Kalamazoo recognized this in 1940 and should be honored to celebrate it now. That honor doesn't include me. That honor includes recognizing an artist. It doesn't recognize taking into account what he's actually saying and what Kalamazoo is supporting by keeping that. So I'm asking that you please do not keep any part of the fountain the way that it is, and learn more about the Indian Removal Act and how to properly honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan McKinney. I'm the acting president of the Western Michigan University Native American Student Organization. I too am here to comment about the Fountain of the Pilgrims. I'll be referencing some data that was provided on the Bronson Park, the 21st Century Campaign. This master plan was created in 2015. There are several things on this pamphlet that I'm kind of unclear on. Beginning with, there's a comment to preserve and interpret the Native American mound. I want to be clear who is interpreting that and what they mean by preserving. Now, there has been a suggestion that QR codes could be placed around the park to help educate visitors. To me, that's pretty prohibitive. I mean, not everybody has an $800 smartphone in their pocket, and that's not a very visual thing. I think most people would agree that if it's going to take more than 30 seconds for someone to learn about Native culture, they're probably not going to do it unless it's there as a plaque. Interestingly, there is a provision for a rotary wheel plaque to be placed. So if we can have a rotary plaque, why can we not have a plaque describing Native American culture on the same location? There's a quote that is on this master plan. It says, "This is an opportunity to explore and learn about Kalamazoo's history and cultural experience." I can tell you it's not a very positive experience when you walk by that statue. And not just from my own experience and other Native people's experience, but also people from Taino families, people that are of other Native indigenous descent. I think the imagery is pretty clear on that statue. This plan lays out $2.8 million, of which $1.25 million has been allocated for the fountain. Only $50,000 has been allocated for public education, with a further $200,000 for seasonal and education maintenance, whatever that means. That breaks down to 1.78% for education and 7.1% of the total cost to be spent on education and to informing the public as to the, quote, native history and culture. Understand that a lot of this money has been made possible by visionary gifts, i.e. philanthropic endeavors. And I would just ask that if this money is being spent in the spirit of those philanthropic gifts to the city that have helped balance the budget and will help beautify our downtown. This statue is in disrepair. This is an opportunity to be on the right side of history and to change what is a fairly oppressive and, as Monica pointed out, a pretty negative image to have within Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo is my adopted home. I love it here. I love being a Bronco. I don't love having to come downtown and explain why I have issues with that. And I don't think that QR codes and even a plaque goes far enough to describe those issues. We need to have a broad native and public dialogue as to.
Thank you, sir. Your time has expired. Good evening, ma'am. Oops.
Good evening,
sir.
I'm Doug Kirk. I'm here from the Bicycle Club, and I live on Mockingbird Drive. It's hard to follow up the emotion of those people right there, but I do want to express my emotion and thanks to you people for adopting the Complete Streets policy and the 5-foot ordinance. But I also want to make sure you're aware that something is going on between the City of Kalamazoo, the City of Portage, and the Kalamazoo County Road Commission that has the potential to undermine the good that you've done. Those three government agencies are working on a signage policy that is a policy about signing the roads in the City of Kalamazoo, the City of Portage, and Kalamazoo County. This signage policy says right in it that people need to recognize that the roads are for motor vehicles. It doesn't say anything about non-motorized transportation. Not a word. I read the whole thing. The policy is so biased that it allows for signs warning people about golf carts crossing the road, but specifically forbids signs warning that handicapped people might be using the road. The time for comments on this proposed policy ends October 23rd. I don't claim to understand how the approval policy works when you have these three different agencies involved. I don't know for a fact whether you folks have a say in it, but I certainly hope that you do, and I certainly hope that you'll take a good look at it, because what's going on here has the ability to undermine the good that you've been doing. Just as one final example, Portage has a supplement to this policy specifically containing signs and approvals for bicycling-related signs in the City of Portage. There is no such supplement for the City of Kalamazoo. I emailed Mr. Hoekstra, your traffic engineer, to talk to him about this, and he just said to send in a comment. But I want to make you folks aware that something's going on here to undermine the good that you've been doing, and I hope you'll take a good hard look at what you can do to keep progress moving in the right direction for non-motorized transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wanting to address the commission this evening? Seeing no one, we are at commissioners' comments. Commissioner Mozark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to pass along an apology from Commissioner Sykes. She's feeling ill this evening and was unable to make it here with us. I wanted to thank all the businesses and youth that were involved in this summer's YOU program. I spent 6 years with the Vine Neighborhood Association and always look forward to working with YOU over the summer. So I really appreciate all the work everyone does with that. I wanted to speak briefly on the recent medical marijuana bills. Thank the city attorney for his due diligence up front. on this. All of us received an update pretty much as soon as these bills were signed, letting us know where we were at. With that said, I hope that we, and it sounds like we are, going to move forward with the speed that honors our voters' intent to have dispensaries, and hopefully we can have all of that taken care of over the next 14 months. So once the state's ready to accept applications, we have some in the queue. Because this is, despite decades or more of sort of social injustices against marijuana, it is a vital medication for many people in our community. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Urban?
Thank you, Mayor Hopewell. I just wanted to comment on this business about the signage public comment period. The distinction that I'm making so far with this is that there are roads and there are streets. It's clearly, for safety reasons, there has to be some restriction regarding non-motorized use of roads. But Kalamazoo is composed mainly of streets. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but there are people in chairs who use the public streets. Those are motorized vehicles. They don't go at the speed of cars and trucks, but there are people with no protection at all around their bodies, even more vulnerable than bicyclists are. So I, for one, want to pursue this thing, and I definitely will be looking into what we can do to make a distinction between roads and streets. MDOT has maybe primary jurisdiction over some major throughways, but where people need to get around, besides those roads, it seems like we could do better. So I'd like people to talk to me about that, and I'll see what I can do to move that. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Knott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick shout out tonight to Director Lamb and her department. I understand the Community Planning and Development Department carries a heavy load, but they've been very responsive in the recent past to some unexpected problematic properties. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge the hustle and the swift action and then the constant follow-up.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like just to make a quick comment on a couple things that were on the consent agenda tonight, and that is one way. Actually, we allow more time here for citizen comment, is grouping items together on a consent agenda, which anyone in the audience has an opportunity to pull off that consent agenda if they'd like to speak about it, and anyone sitting up here has the opportunity to pull that off. But we didn't pull those off, so they passed all together, and the rules of a consent agenda mean that if it's on the consent agenda, you do not have opportunity, whether you're sitting up here or whether you're sitting out there, to actually comment on that particular item when it occurs there in the agenda. So I just want to be clear about that, and then actually recognize a couple, big items, I guess, that went through in the consent agenda, which kind of reflects some of the ongoing work that happens at the city that sometimes we ignore. One of the things that I want to thank the chief directly and other staff that he worked with is we did receive what was known as a Justice Assistance Grant, JAG grant, for not a great amount of money, but it takes a lot of work to do that, and that's certainly a resource that we need. And then this time when we've been getting reduced federal assistance here at the city of Kalamazoo, here's a way to get something, apply competitively for some resources. Even though the entire grant is $78,000, we are sharing 15 of it, more or less, with the county, so that's $63,000 here to the city, which is, assistance. But one thing that was interesting to me, looking at our agenda tonight, which is many times the whole agenda packet is 100, 150 pages, 20 of the pages in our agenda packet were set aside just for this one item. And why were there 20 pages set aside for the award of this grant? Basically, it's because what comes from the feds are 9 overarching acts and a description that we have to comply with in a whole variety of areas related to getting this grant. 51 individual special conditions that are included with this money, which many of them are reporting conditions, which require us to complete extensive reporting on this particular grant. 51 special conditions underneath the 9 overarching acts, and of those 51 special conditions, several of them have subsections as well. Some of them include things that are obviously serious, require very particular reporting and particular policies at the city, an extensive list of policies at the city. And some of their things are sort of odd requests, like we really want you to send us stories of positive things you do with this money and take your time and send that in, I suppose, so they can aggregate that and talk about what a good job they're doing. But anyway, it's just interesting to me that it's a good benefit. Thank you, Public Safety. Thank you, City Manager, for, making sure we have staff time to do that. But I wonder at the end, with all this compliance requirement, I hate to say it, I would never suggest to not go after it, but it's astounding how much compliance requirements come with something like this. The other thing, which is really not often thought about at all, which is an odd thing that the city does, you wouldn't even think that the city does that. I mean, on our agenda tonight, consent agenda, was selling $135 million worth of hospital bonds. That seems like, why is the city doing that? Well, in 1969 in this state, an act was passed that allowed cities to provide assistance to their hospital entities that were within the boundaries of that city. And we have a very strong partnership with Bronson, our nonprofit hospital here in town. And really what we're doing tonight was luckily does not obligate the city to paying those bonds back, but it allows the hospital system to refinance loans, in essence, bonding that they have out there to the tune of $135 million, and take advantage of lower rates so that their operating costs are lower. So to me, huge thing when you think about it, rarely, if ever, shows up on any news report. It's kind of treated as business as usual, but probably millions and millions of dollars can be saved by Bronson Hospital by the fact that we have this partnership, and it works as well as it does, and it's so non-controversial that it goes on our consent agenda, no one even talks about it. So that is why I'm talking about it tonight, because I think it's worthy, it's noteworthy, and I really do appreciate the fact we have a great award-winning hospital system right here in town, just a few blocks from us, and thank them for all the good work that they do outside of, the good partnership they have with the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Mr. Attorney?
I wasn't going to bring it up, but Commissioner Anderson brought up the hospital refinancing bonds. Because we have the hospital authority in the city of Kalamazoo, and Bronson is obviously in Kalamazoo, but Bronson has facilities elsewhere. Believe it or not, this refinancing bond also will assist with facilities that Bronson has in Battle Creek, which doesn't have a hospital financing, and in Antwerp Township in Van Buren County. So you're actually doing something on a regional basis. It's just not for the city of Kalamazoo. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of kind of dropping the stone in the pond and the ripple effect that the city commission has.
Good.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I wanted to point out 3 things that are happening in the community this week that people might not be aware of, but are very important. Tomorrow night at 5:30, there will be a candlelight vigil at the YWCA for victims of domestic abuse. The YWCA does a tremendous job in working with people who are victims of domestic abuse, and so that's really important. On Wednesday, we have a program in Kalamazoo called the First Day School Fund. And what they do is they collect money and they give out shoes to kids on the first day of school. Many kids who don't have shoes. I mean, I don't know how many they give out, but I know that 2 years ago, communities and schools gave out over 500 pair of shoes to kids that didn't have shoes, decent shoes. So it's their 10th anniversary. And they're going to have a celebration of that on Wednesday night from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Upjohn Institute here on West Edge. And then finally, on Thursday night, Isaac, the organization of churches in Kalamazoo for social justice, has their annual public meeting at Mount Zion Church off Burdick Street on the north side, and that will be at 6 o'clock on Thursday night. And Isaac does a tremendous job trying to raise awareness of social justice issues and advocating, and really has made a tremendous difference in people's lives in Kalamazoo. So these are examples of wonderful things that our people are doing in the community, and as many people as could need to go out and show their support.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. My comments will be fairly quick. I'm going to miss the Isaac event, so I hope you can cover for me. I'm going to be at your employer receiving an alumni award, which I'm thinking, well, anyway, I don't like awards, but I'll be there with bells on or whatever to receive an award from the Western Michigan University. So, yeah, I said it. And speaking of Western Michigan University and colleges, I think there's some students out there. Am I right? If I am, nod your head. You know, some of you Broncos out there? Yeah. We got more than Broncos in our community, you know. But this is a good day to be a. There we go. We are adjourned.
Well,
Good, good.
sorry for them. Once we weren't going to discuss the interview, because he was gone by the time.
What department is this?
God, man. You don't know it. You know who did it. Holy cow. Council education.
College education.
Oh, okay. So who's the woman that's got it? Oh,
I don't know. All five of us.
that's great. That is tremendous.
First time in their history. They didn't plan it that way.
Wow, that's great. That's terrific. Hey, Frank. You see, I gave that to you.
Oh yeah.